Welcome to another conversation off the clock. Hi, I'm Carmina Constantino Torres, and this is Casey After Hours. For many, this is the time to be with family, to rest and to reflect. And in that quiet, questions often surface about life, love, and faith. Whatever's on your mind, let's talk about it. No judgment here, just a space to listen, share, and perhaps find a little clarity along the way. Ang gulo-gulo na rin kasi ng mundo natin ngayon. I'm sure marami na rin sa atin ang nag-iisip, paano ko ba ito malalagpasan? Kung ano man niyang pinagdadaanan. Well, habang nagninilay po kayo, I hope this episode helps you along the way. Try nating makahanap ng solusyon with today's Ask Me Anything. So the past week, we asked you guys to send in your questions. Bago po ang lahat, maraming salamat sa mga nagpadala ng questions. I know I always say this, you could have been doing something else. You could have chosen to spend your time doing something else. But the fact that you took some time to send in your questions, dun pa lang, maraming salamat po. At maraming salamat sa pagsuporta ninyo. So let's begin. What's your greatest insecurity? My greatest insecurity, hindi po ako marunong mag-drawing. Kasi po, in our family, hindi lang po ako galing sa pamilya ng mga nationalists, mga aktivista, pero lahat po sila artists. Like my dad, he painted, he drew, he knew how to sculpt, no? My brother as well, he's into printmaking and the way he sketches. My two sisters are artists holding exhibits here and there. Ako po, hindi binayayaan ng ganong klaseng talento. So, it's been my insecurity for all this time. Pero, enough naman yung kaalaman ko sa pagdrawing kapag nagpapadraw yung aking pinakabunsong anak na si Letizia. So, it's enough. It's enough for a dog to look like a dog or a cat to look like a cat. Are hyper-independent women really difficult to love? I think love is love is love is love. I think it doesn't matter if you're hyper-independent or you're not. I think it's really honing in on how, that person wants to be loved. And then once you figure that out, then it's gonna be so much easier. I would say that I'm independent, but I'm not, hyper independent na hindi ko, I won't accept any sort of love. Of course, I've learned to love myself through the years. But there's something in me that, my husband knows very well and alam na niya yung love language ko at alam ko rin yung love language niya. And I think in knowing that, whether you're hyper-independent, you're independent or something else, I think that's the key, knowing each other's love languages. Dream interview, both local and international, and what would you like to ask them? I've often said that I don't want to reveal who my dream interview is kasi baka hindi mangyari. But I guess, ito, alam ko na kasi na hindi na talaga mangyayari. To be able to sit down in a room and talk to my lolo, the nationalist historian Renato Constantino, who sadly passed away decades ago. That would have been something else. Kasi, although it's been my policy not to interview yung mga kamag-anak, ganyan, but I think kaya nga siya nananatiling isang panaginip, diba? Kasi even if he were still alive, I know that won't happen because of my personal stand on interviewing, close family members. But it's also a dream to be able to, probe his thoughts tungkol sa nangyayari po sa bayan natin. Much of what he had written in his book, The Past Revisited, which he collaborated with my lola, Letizia Rojas Constantino, it's still relevant up to today. So to be able to probe his thoughts on that, on the relevance of the issues then, to the issues now, that would have been an interesting conversation. Of course, ang dami rin namin pwedeng pag-usapan pa kasi yung lolo ko nang nabubuhay siya, mahilig din siya sa sining. napakabuti po din niyang lolo. So siguro tatanungin ko din kung ano yung pagkakaiba dun sa kung paano niya pinalaki yung pop ko at saka yung tita ko at saka yung, how he had so much fun with us because he was he was a doting lolo. Masaya siyang kasama nun. So that would have been a dream interview. Yung isa naman that I really hope wag na lang. Si-secret ko yun. Kasi tsaka na baka hindi matuloy kasi ito, pwede pa tong mangyari. If love is the most powerful force, why is it also the most fragile? I think because when something is so powerful, it's also at its breaking point, diba? And that makes it so fragile. If it really is love, right, it has to be really taken care of and nurtured because the power comes from its fragility. And the fragility comes from its power as well. So kaya siya ganon. Kung totoong pagmamahal yan, kung totoong pag-ibig yan. If suffering is inevitable, is happiness merely a temporary distraction? Ako baliktad ang tingin ko. I think suffering is a distraction. For the most part, I think it's happiness that is really inevitable. Kasi kahit saan ka tumingin, change mo lang yung mindset mo. Makikita mo yung kaligayahan eh. Kahit sa simpleng bagay. The fact that you're able to see the sun, the fact that you're able to wake up to another day, that in itself is a cause for joy. Not just happiness, but really a deeply felt joy in your heart, right? Pero suffering is there and it's inevitable kasi nga binaliktad ko eh. I think suffering is inevitable. Kasi kung walang suffering, hindi mo rin makikita at malalaman sa sarili mo kung ano ba yung happiness, ano ba yung joy, ano ba yung kasiyahan na nararamdaman mo. It only amplifies the other, right? But I think change in mindset will prove that happiness is inevitable and suffering is a temporary distraction. If free will exists, why do we often feel like prisoners of our own circumstances? Kasi siguro para sa iba, mas nangingibabaw yung pakiramdam, yung feeling that they are prisoners of their own circumstances. Hindi nila nababalanse dun sa free will na they have it in them to get them out of whatever rut that they're in. So, pero mahirap talaga guys. Sometimes the emotions get the best of us and we feel like we're there. We're in the middle of it. Nalulunod tayo. So much so na hindi na natin nagagamit yung utak, hindi natin naiisip na teka nga muna. May utak ako, hindi lang puso. Of course, masakit, magulo, nakakalito, whatever it is that you're going through, right? But the mind is there to sort of make you think of solutions, of ways to get out of the rut that you're in. So, siguro ganon paminsan yung nangyayari, mas nangingibabaw yung emosyon kesa dun sa pag-iisip na kaya ko to. And it has to work hand in hand. You also cannot naman then deny your feelings, diba? Because that is real as well. But there has to come a point that it'll feed each other towards only one goal, which is to make yourself better and to help yourself out. How do you know if you're making the right decisions in life po? Ako kasi, I've come to a point na I don't second guess anymore. Kasi nauuna sa akin yung dasal. Like I pray for the things that I want to happen in my life, in my husband's life, in my children's lives, in my inner circle, yung mga pinagdadasal ko sa bawat araw. Nauuna sa akin yung dasal. And then yung trust. So, pag dumating na doon sa punto na kailangan akong magdesisyon, whether it's big, whether it's small, nauna na kasing dasal nauna na kasing pagtiwala. So I don't have to second guess anymore the decision that I have to make. Yung ganon. Hindi ko na nabibigyan ng puwang yung sarili ko na mag-isip kung tama ba yung decision ko, kasi by that point, alam ko na doon na ako dinala ng Diyos dahil nga nagdasal na ako at nagtiwala. So magaan. What's the hardest lesson you've learned about love? Oh my gosh. That love is not the same for everyone. That I might think of it as love, but the other person didn't think that it was. That's one. The other thing is, never fall in love with love. Yan. Kasi yung iba sa atin, mas nadadala dun sa kilig. Mas minamahal nila yung kilig. And then they're often, what happens, and this happened to me in the past, what would happen is you're just falling in love with the thought of love, right? But the deeper sense of it, ampaw, walang laman. Pero gusto mo yung kilig, ganyan. You have this concept. Pero in reality, iba dun. Iba sa nangyayari. If you're gonna fall in love with a person, fall in love with a partnership, fall in love with your future together and the present that it's built on. Have you ever lost your faith? Never. Yun siguro yung isa sa pwede kong ipagmalaki sa sarili ko, that I never lost faith, because I would always turn to prayer. Pag masaya ako, I turn to prayer. Pag malungkot ako, I turn to prayer. Pag ninenervyos ako, I turn to prayer. And even now, it's just on the phone with one of the kids, right? They're off to a competition, a swimming competition, and I always tell them, pray before each event and ask God to swim with you. Yung ganyan. So it's become a way of life for me that often I find myself in prayer. Na ganun lang. Kasi importante sa akin yung faith. I've gone through so much. And it's always faith that pulled me through. Hypothetically, your partner cheated. How would you handle it if, for example, you have built a life already? Pretty difficult, lalo na sa mga kababaihan. But I'm only speaking for myself, no? For myself, and hypothetically, if this happens, I would say that meron ako kasing non-negotiables Yun yung tinuro sa akin ng mga magulang ko at ng lola ko. Pagka sinaktan ka na, definitely, that's a big no, right? He has to leave. Yung cheating, iba-iba kasi yan sa iba't ibang partnership. So I can only speak for what my husband and I have built, no. I can say that we can continue to, live that life that we have built. But I think it has to be separately. And I say that because the life that we've built doesn't only involve the two of us. We have kids already, diba? So they shouldn't be made to suffer. If we can continue, that kind of life, but as individuals already and not as a couple, that would be ideal for me, diba? Kasi mahirap din naman para sa mga bata na makita, diba, na you're only staying in the marriage for their sake. That's also a burden to them, diba? But siguro hypothetically, if it happens, I'd say that we can go into that whole realm of co-parenting and let it be as light as possible for the children. Because as I said earlier, it's not just the life that we built together as partners, but also a life that we built already for our children. But that's just me talking in the here and now, because it hasn't, or I hope it'll never happen. Pero hindi rin natin masasabi pag nandun ka na rin sa sitwasyon na yon. How do you handle grief? My dad passed away 2 years ago, but it seems like it was just yesterday. I miss him terribly. I also lost my dad a year ago. Ang bilis ng panahon, ano? And I still grieve over that loss. And I don't think it will ever go away. And I think that's the beauty of it. Every time I'm reminded of the sadness that I feel, sometimes I give in, I cry. But most of the time, that sadness to me is a reminder of the immense love that I have for him and the love that he left behind for each and every member of our family. So that in itself makes me handle grief a bit better. But what I have learned to do and what I have learned to be beneficial to me and the grief that I carry is that I have written to my dad every day since he left us. And that helps me. Every single day, I journal, I write to him. And kinukwentuhan ko siya kung ano yung mga nangyari, kung ano yung mangyayari, kung ano yung kaba ko, kung meron ba akong nararamdaman na kakaiba. And it makes me feel as if he's just here and I'm talking to him, because my dad really was such an anchor in my life. He would only say one word. Let's say may pinagdadaanan ako. He would only say one word and I'd snap out of it. Or he would text me and I'd snap out of it and I'd feel strong again. Yung ganyan. So, and I miss him. I miss him terribly. But I hold on to the memories as well. And I put up pictures. Merong mga iba dyan kasi they don't want to be reminded of the loss. Baka hindi pa nila kaya, hindi nila matingnan yung mga pictures, ganyan. Pero ako, anything that reminds me of my dad, I put all over the house, right? So there was a note. There was a note that he wrote to me when I was fighting for my life after the aneurysm incident. He wrote it on a scrap paper, and he taped it on the railings of the hospital bed. And the note is actually here. So here it is, the note that my dad wrote to me. It says, "My sole duty and responsibility is to relax, rest, and recover." Period. My exclamation point pa yan. So, it's been what? It's been a decade since that aneurysm incident. At tinago ko po talaga ito. And now I framed it. And it's sort of a reminder for me every single day to just keep it steady. Right? To just, and when things really get so hectic and stressful for me, I only need to look at this piece of paper. And it reminds me not just of what my dad told me then, years ago, but also of the love that was there for me. And I'd like to believe it's still there. And that's the reason why he wrote me that note. So ganun ako. That's the type of person that I am. To get over the grief, I just want constant reminders of my dad around the house. Miss Casey, how do you find peace when you're struggling with doubts? Again, prayer. I just turn to prayer every single time. Kasi sometimes, pagkausap mo na yung Diyos, actually most of the time, and when you're just there, I allow myself to really sink into that quiet, to be able to find out if there are really doubts. Diba? Sometimes kasi hindi naman doubt yan eh. Hindi siya doubt. Pag inanalyze mo, hindi pala siya doubt. Pwedeng kinakabahan ka lang. Pero hindi ibig sabihin hindi ka naniniwala sa sarili mo. Diba? Pwedeng kinakabahan ka lang pero hindi naman ibig sabihin nun na mali yung ginawa mo. Diba? Kinakabahan ka lang. So parang you really have to break it down to see if it's really doubt, right? Now, if it's really doubt about where to go in life, which decision you have to make, or doubting yourself for the decision that you had already made, then again, I turn to prayer. And I talk to people to process things. For me, it's my husband. He's like my sounding board. I tell him everything. And so when that happens, so I have that, and I have God, and I have my mom, diba? Dati si Pop, pero wala na siya. So ganyan. My brother, my sister, ganyan. There. At this very moment, what do you pray for? It's always been about family for me. So I always pray for their good health. You know, bata pa po kasi mga anak ko. And my prayer always for them is that they be guided by the Lord and their guardian angels, so that they would grow up to be the best versions of themselves, and for me and Noel to be the best parents we could ever be to them. Ang hirap na rin kasi ng panahon ngayon. Hindi na kasing dali to parent because of the many other factors that are outside the home. So that's what I pray for. Na sana bigyan kami ng tamang pananalita, tamang pag-iisip, tamang puso, no? Para mapalaki namin yung mga anak namin. So that's one. And then of course, I also pray for my husband and his well-being always. And of course, for my mom, yun yung pinagdadasal ko din. Tatlong H yung para kay mommy ko. Health, happiness, and humor. Yan ang continued health, continued happiness, and continued humor in my mom's life. As someone who feels lost in his career, do you think it is okay to change careers if it no longer aligns with your purpose? The first thing you have to know, no, before you make any big decisions in life is to really know your purpose. Ano ba yung purpose mo? 'Di ba? Baka kasi dun ka nagkamali. So parang baka hindi yun yung purpose mo. And then you thought that this would be the career to go with that purpose. So I think, again, it's the other way around. Don't look at the career, but look at yourself. Because sometimes it's the purpose that was the wrong foundation, and it wasn't the career. Napalabas lang nung career na mali pala yung purpose mo. You weren't true to yourself and you thought that was your purpose, and then eventually it was the career that just showed you that baka hindi nga tugma. It wasn't a fit. So unless you settle in yourself that, okay, this is my purpose and this is what I am, and I'm gonna go for it, I'm gonna, diba? Unless that's it, then every single thing that comes your way, it will never be a fit. Kasi the foundation has always been rocky to begin with. How do you forgive yourself for past mistakes? Now, this one is kind of difficult because I am a person who's very hard on herself. I am one who doesn't forgive herself easily for the mistakes made in the past. But I just try to do better every single day. And hopefully the forgiveness will come. But for sure, I learned from the mistakes, right? Yung mga araw-araw na dinadala nating problema or pasanin sa buhay, maliit man yan or malaki, paano mo siya hinaharap at paano ka nananatiling positibo sa kabila ng lahat? Paano ko siya hinaharap? Hindi ko siya tinataguan. I don't escape. I just face them head on. Ang tingin ko kasi dyan, araw-araw kang binubuhay para araw-araw kang magwagi. I don't believe, that we were put here, or some people were put here to fail in life. Every day we're given that chance to succeed. And so whatever setback comes my way, I face it and I try to find solutions. Because hindi lang kasi ako nag-iisa dito eh. I have a husband, I have kids, I am a daughter, I am a sister. And maraming maapektuhan, if I just give up. So nakakaya naman na eto sila, minamahal nila ako, they're supporting me and all that. And I'm not even fighting for myself, right? So That's what I do every single day. I face setbacks head on because of the love that I have for my family, and that alone makes me positive. Ms. Carmina, we know na lahat tayo are hoping and wishing for something, whatever that may be for you and for us. Pero how do you deal when life is telling you it's a no, it's a yes, or maybe it's a not yet? Again, I just go back to faith. There was a time when I had a miscarriage, right? And then the nurse was talking to me, and I was already crying, and then the nurse talked to me and said, "Ma'am, it's okay. Ayaw pa niyang mag-birthday." And that really resonated with me because, whatever it is that we're going through life, we often forget that most of the time, it's not for us to figure it out. Diba? Most of the time, it's not for us to plan things out. It's Him. It's His plan. It's His divine plan for us. So when life tells me that it's a no, or it's a yes, or maybe it's a not yet, I just completely trust that it's a no, that it's a yes, and maybe it's a not yet. It's not for me to question. Bakit ganyan? I've never questioned anything that has happened to me. I just see it as, okay, it's a no. Okay, then I'll go find something else to do. Oh, it's a no again? Sige, hanap ulit ako. It's a yes? Perfect. I'll make good. Diba? This is it. I'm gonna be home here. Oh, it's a maybe not yet? Then I'll just be patient. Diba? But the things that will drive me towards going after every single goal is my faith and my trust in Him, that He is the divine planner, that He planned my life, diba? So it's not for me to say hindi dapat diba? It's a no, pero no, I think it's a yes. No, it's not for me to do that, right? But of course, meron namang mga realidad talaga sa buhay na pag sinabi kang no, pero yes naman talaga, paglaban mo yun, di ba? But I guess you're getting me. But if it's a more existential way of thinking, diba, then that's how I deal with it. So thanks again, everyone, for sending all your messages. We really appreciate that, and we really appreciate your support for the channel. And so I hope that in our own little way, we've helped you dig a little deeper, not just in analyzing what burdens you, but also into that strength and that power that will help you pull through. Pero sa lahat ng pinagdadaanan, pag-ibig man yan, pamilya, trabaho, buhay, isa lang ang sagot, ang mahigpit na pagkapit sa may kapal. Just keep the faith and all will go well. Remember what John Lennon said? In the end, everything will be okay. If it's not okay, then it's not the end. And that's it for another episode of Casey After Hours. You know the drill. Like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.